We live in a twilight world. There are no friends at dusk. So let's do a quick little illusion warfare report, a little update. I've been at work over the weekend, and so yeah, today's kind of like the day I'm looking at things. Well, I had a little look at things yesterday when I had the opportunity, and the main thing I saw, propaganda-wise and illusion warfare-wise, was the talk of actual blackouts. Blackouts in Kiev. Now, apparently, over the last week or so, they've been having like minor blackouts where they've been switching off the electricity at certain times of the day, mainly nighttime, of course, putting people in Kiev in darkness. I just watched a news, France 24 news propaganda piece with the former NATO commander, Jean-Paul Palomares. You know, there's a hell of a lot of ex-NATO commanders around, you know. But anyway, that's I digress. That has nothing to do with this conversation. So yeah, Vitaly Klitschko, the mayor of Kiev, has done a video, like, you know, warning people in Kiev or advising people in Kiev to evacuate, to make plans to have to leave the city. And from what I can gather, pretty much every news media outlet is doing the same thing. They're planting the seed of major blackouts happening in Kiev, or just one big blackout happening altogether, which is, of course, going to force people to have to leave the city once again. Now, it's interesting we've gone full circle now back to Kiev. Of course, this whole big illusion of war started with the hoax invasion of Kiev, where there was no actual, in my opinion, no actual Russian troops anywhere near Kiev. It was a trigger point, an illusion operation, backed up by a huge media propaganda campaign to convince people that the city of Kiev was, 24 hours away from being sieged by the Russian military. And of course, it just didn't happen. But the easily fooled masses played their part. They fell for the illusion. They jumped on trains. They fled into everywhere else, into Poland, into various parts of Europe. Now it looks like here we are nearly 8 months later, and they're going back to Kiev. Now, Kiev is the big cheese. Kiev has a ridiculous amount of people, and when it comes to scaring the shit out of people, Kiev is ideal. Because it's going to be mostly middle-class people with jobs working there, living there, and they're going to be the easiest ones to kind of, use illusion operations to push them into participation of this phony baloney war. Now, let's switch over to the sketchbook. This really got big. This whole blackout thing really got big yesterday. That's when the huge media campaign started warning of a major blackout in Kiev. And the date was the 6th of November, which, of course, is like a spun around 9/11. Because that's in the UK, that's how we write it. We write day, month, year, okay? I don't know why in the US they do it the other way around, where they put the month before the day. I've never understood that one. But anyway, that's what's coming up. So yeah, they usually like to do a bookend with these things, right? There's usually a day when the propaganda starts, and then a day when the illusion operation starts. And they usually tend to be like a bookend, or they have some kind of correlation. Now, as I've said again and again and again, I don't like to make predictions. I think that's a very bad thing to do for various reasons. But looking at the dates, okay, we've got, of course, the 9th of November coming up. We've got the 11th of November coming up. Of course, 22 being a key date regarding Ukraine. Then, of course, we've got the 22nd of the 11th coming up, which is, the hoax number 33. I don't know. There's a lot of interesting dates coming up, and something like a blackout is ideal for illusion warfare, and it's an illusion operation. Yet again, it's gonna be something that they can just turn the power grid on and off and claim it's because of a war. So people in Kiev are gonna really have a sensory effect. They are going to be sitting in the cold because it's winter now. It's going to be sitting in the cold, sitting in the dark. They're going to really be experiencing a blackout. But of course, it's not going to be anything to do with the military. The military did not blow up a power station. They merely just turned it off. Or they've done a fake explosion at the power station. It's just such an ideal weapon of illusion warfare is a blackout. Of course, I'm sure this happened in World War II during the Blitz of London. I'm sure there was blackout-like situations, which of course they would have blamed it on a distant part of London being bombed to bits by the Luftwaffe, when really it's probably nothing happening. When it comes to illusion warfare, there's so many kind of activities you can do, which forces the easily fooled masses to participate. It's unbelievable, It's an endless list. And none of it involves bombs or bullets killing people. That's the thing here. Now, once again, in my head, I'm just playing back the recording I've just made, and I realise I've done a very awful job at explaining illusion operations and illusion warfare. I just did a podcast on Friday with Human Vibration, and we were having a good chat and that, and I realized like where I'm failing the most is I'm not really explaining illusion warfare and illusion operations very well. So that's what I got to do over the next couple of months. I've really got to kind of iron out the creases and explain it better, because I think the reason most people are not getting it is down to me. I'm not explaining it very well. I'm giving like the odd example here and there, but I need to kind of give it like a real basic explanation I can just say in a very articulate sentence that people go, oh yeah, illusion warfare, I get what he's talking about. So, yeah. Turning off the power, that's simply all they've got to do. Over here in the UK, we've got a lot of what they call overhead power lines. Most of our power grid is via overhead power lines. Now, in the countryside, of course, you've got trees and forestry growing underneath it. And every day we have tree surgeons going out and, cutting down them trees, because all it takes is a branch to fly onto them over to them power lines, and that's it. The power will be out. So when we have power outages here in the UK, it's mostly because a tree or a branch has flown onto the power lines, and that's it. Now, I'm not an expert in Ukrainian power lines, but maybe they have the similar thing. They have overhead power cables, and because of the war, the tree surgeons haven't been out cutting down that forestry, keeping it all running. Who knows? I don't know. Now, I know a lot about this because one of my good friends is a tree surgeon, and that's his job. Let me go back to the drawing board here. Hang on. Let's resettle this. Okay. So yeah, we have these these power tower things that look kind of like this. I'm sure you have them across your countries in Europe. Let me draw it here. Something like this. And then, of course, the power cable's going like this. Yeah, you know what I mean. Okay. Now, this area underneath, that's called a span. Okay. And the tree surgeons have to go and clear that span because you get trees underneath growing, and if they grow up between the power lines and the wind blows and they catch, that's all it takes to trip the power line. And there's like, I don't know, maybe thousands of power line spans that need to be cleared every year. And what my friend was telling me, he's a tree surgeon, is that every year the UK is falling 30,000 spans behind the target they're meant to be reaching. And that's pretty incredible, I think, because if those tree surgeons, went on strike or, were told to not go to work due to a lockdown, our country would be fucked. The UK would be absolutely fucked. Because how quick trees and that grow over here in the UK, where we have great summers and very wet winters. That's why we're such a green country. I don't mean green as in like Greta Thunberg type green. I mean green as in actually lush vegetation, yeah? Because, these trees are just growing very, very quick. So maybe it's the same in Ukraine, because I've been to Ukraine and it's a very similar kind of climate to the UK, and the fields and stuff, the countryside of Ukraine looks very similar to the countrysides of the UK. Now, if they've been if the tree surgeons have not been doing their job, they're going to be falling very, very far behind. Now, during a phony baloney war conditions, I don't know whether tree surgeons are allowed to go out and clear the span like they would normally. So you're going to have power issues there. Equally, you could just have the very, very small amount of people who work for the hidden hand within Ukraine merely just telling the power grid to switch off. And that's all it takes, So yeah, interesting stuff. Let's get our favorite Ukraine map out, wherever that is. Where is our favorite Ukraine map? There we go. So yeah, I think there's around 3 million people we use purple, the color of illusion. It's apparently 3 million people back in Kiev. And if there's a blackout, it's going to be the same situation again. They're going to be making their way to Poland or to other places around Ukraine that are, supposedly safe, like Lviv and so on. So it's going to be like the Battle of Kiev all over again. And all they have to do, the hidden hand, has to really reduce the train times at Kiev, forcing people to build up in like a mass formation at the train stations to where the media will be filming their plight, their struggles of being a refugee and, piling onto trains that are now running late and stuff because of the war. And it's just, to me, it's very easy to see how they engineer wars. All by doing things like making a blackout. So yeah. We live in a twilight world, and there are no friends at dusk.